In tonight's deep dive, we want to go back to President Trump's Board of Peace. A signing ceremony for the board was held earlier today on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos, the president calling it one of the most consequential bodies ever created.
I think it's going to happen. To end decades of suffering, stop generations of hatred and bloodshed, and forge a beautiful, everlasting, and glorious peace for that region and for the whole region of the world.
More than 24 countries so far have accepted the invitation to join the Board of Peace, but none of our European allies have signed on yet. Some even flat out rejecting the idea. So for more on this, I want to bring in ABC News contributor and former U.S. ambassador to NATO, retired Lieutenant General Doug Lute. Thank you so much for your time, sir. But listen, we talk about some government leaders speaking out against this Board of Peace. They claim that it undermines the United Nations. Here's what President Trump had to say about the UN earlier today.
I think the combination of the Board of Peace with the kind of people we have here, coupled with the United Nations, can be something very, very unique for the world.
I'm curious, do you think there's a scenario in which these two bodies coexist?
Well, it's not actually clear what the Board of Peace is and what it's intended to do. As you mentioned, there are some 24 members so far, but importantly, not major European allies and not China. So the membership is in question. And even for the U.S., the Board of Peace charter that the president displayed at Davos today is only an executive agreement. It doesn't have the weight of a treaty, which would require 2/3 ratification in the U.S. Senate, like the UN charter. It does have the weight of a treaty. So there are a lot of questions here.
Yeah, certainly. Well, and I want to talk about some of the countries that have accepted. More than 20 have accepted the invitation. We're talking about countries like Bahrain and Albania, Vietnam. Listen, even the Kremlin says that Russia was extended an invite. What do you make of this list?
Well, it strikes me as more of a matter of regime, prestige, than a meaningful organization. We have to see the meat of the agreement. So what's the legal authority for this body? What's the charter? What are the mechanisms for actually getting things done? Who's going to fund this organization? So there, at this point, are many more questions than there are answers. And therefore, I conclude it's much more of a question of prestige than it is a meaningful organization.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point about seeing the meat of the agreement, and that's well taken. But I'm curious, whenever you see some of the folks on this list, we'll see what Russia decides to do. But in any way, does this potentially challenge NATO?
No, I don't think so. Not at all. First of all, until you settle the outlines of the authorities and the organization, it's very difficult to figure out what this body might be capable of. What we do know is that the original purpose of the Board of Peace was linked to the post-war situation in Gaza. So I think the first test of this Board of Peace will be Gaza itself. Who disarms Hamas? Who secures Gaza after Hamas is disarmed? Who will fund and administer the Gaza reconstruction? So first things first, and the first test, I think, for the Board of Peace is clearly its original intent, which is Gaza.
Well, and something else that has been making headlines, that President Trump could potentially hold the chairmanship for life. I'm curious, how could that reshape foreign policy and what power future administrations could hold on the world stage?
Well, again, this is only an executive agreement. So this is an agreement that President Trump has signed, and it has the authority of the White House today. But it doesn't bind future administrations, and it certainly doesn't bind the body itself if President Trump is no longer president. So it's, again, there are many more questions here than there are clear answers.
How does it feel like this news of this Board of Peace has been received by that Davos crowd?
I think with some sort of mixed results and perhaps a flavor of skepticism, especially in the wake of the crisis just before the signing of the Board of Peace Charter, right? Which is, of course, the whole Greenland episode. And so it's not clear, I think, to many participants in Davos how the country, the United States, that can make the crisis in Greenland over territorial integrity and sovereignty of an allied country turn on its tail, and one day later sign an ambitious but not well defined board of peace. So I think there's some skepticism there until the details are seen.
And I understand the point about skepticism. I am also curious, does it give you pause that some of our oldest and strongest allies aren't just skeptical, but they're flat out no's on this?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, power in the international system comes from a variety of sources. So political cohesion, like the NATO alliance or the United Nations Security Council, economic strength, and many of the economic powers in the world are not part of the Board of Peace, and then finally military hard power. And so this charter that was signed is an ambitious but not yet well-defined start.
A lot of wait and see. Lieutenant General Doug Lute, hey, thank you so much for the time, sir.